Sie sahen und hörten German Landsberger, ein gefeierter Jazzorganist und Pianist und heute Abend einer unserer Gäste. Guten Abend und ein herzliches Willkommen aus der Volksbühne. Mein Name ist Klaus Dörr. Begrüßen darf ich Sie zu Diaspora Europa in unserem Livestream in Kooperation mit dem European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture und mit freundlicher Unterstützung der Bundeszentrale für politische Bildung. Diaspora Europa vereint unterschiedliche zeitgenössische Perspektiven von Romja, Sinti und Jüdinnen auf das Hier und Jetzt. Ursprünglich zum 8. und 9. Mai geplant, sollte Diaspora Europa gemeinsam mit dem Projekt Die Ermittlung 2020 nach Peter Weiss ein Stück über den Auschwitz-Prozess in Frankfurt am Main zu einer künstlerischen Auseinandersetzung anlässlich des 75. Jahrestages der Befreiung vom deutschen Nationalsozialismus und des Europatages einladen. Wir sehen mit Erschrecken, wie schnell sich in einem krisenhaften Jahr wie 2020 alte, auch bereits totgeglaubte Vorurteile wie ein Gespenst in gesellschaftliche Diskurse mischen. Diaspora Europa legt den Fokus darauf, die Communities selbst dazu Stellung nehmen zu lassen, eigene Sichtweisen und Narrative in Bezug auf Europa und seine Geschichte zu präsentieren. Dafür haben wir die Journalistin Shelley Kupferberg und die Leiterin des European Roma Institute, Timea Junghans, Künstlerinnen unterschiedlicher Genres eingeladen, um ihre Arbeiten zu zeigen. Erinnerungserzählungen, Identitäten, Verortungen, Befragungen, Visionen zum Zusammenleben in Europa werden in Performances, Gesprächen, Ausstellungen und Musik präsentiert und zur Diskussion gestellt. Hier soll es darum gehen, Schnittmengen gemeinsamer Erfahrungen zu artikulieren, rund um den heutigen Internationalen Tag der Menschenrechte, zu dem wir ganz besondere Gäste begrüßen dürfen. Eigentlich war ab heute bis zum kommenden Samstag der zweite Versuch, das Programm live zu zeigen. Neben dem ca. 55-minütigen Livestream werden wir möglichst vieles davon aufzeichnen und am Tag des Gedenkens an die Opfer des Nationalsozialismus am 27. Januar streamen. Ich darf jetzt Shelley Kupferberg und Timea Junghans auf die Bühne bitten.
Herzlichen Dank, Klaus Dörr, Intendant der Volksbühne hier am Rosa-Luxemburg-Platz. Und ja, Timea Junghaus und ich hatten tatsächlich das Vergnügen, seit über einem Jahr regelmäßig zusammenzusetzen, um zu überlegen, wie man ein solches Festival ausgestalten könnte, so wie es Klaus Dörr gerade beschrieben hat, eben mit Stimmen aus den Communities. Wir wissen alle, es ist ein bisschen anders gekommen in diesem Jahr, was man so geplant hat, musste man schnell wieder umplanen, nochmal umplanen, nochmal umplanen. Aber wir möchten Ihnen natürlich an diesem Abend noch ein bisschen berichten, welche Gedanken hinter der Festival-Idee jenseits dessen steht, was Klaus Dörr gerade vorgetragen hat. Timea Junghaus wird starten und Ihnen ein paar Punkte dazu sagen.
Danke, Shelley. Your Excellencies, dear Directorate General to the Council of Europe, Snezhana Markovic, dear State Minister Michael Roth, Your Excellency Ambassador Anne-Marie Descott, and dear Commissioner for Human Rights Barbara Kofler, dear curator colleagues, and dear audience. I must first express our thank you to Volksbühne and the curators for the invitation and for giving trust and complete leadership to Roma, Sinti, and Jewish communities to construct and present their own narratives for Europe. Thinking about Europe beyond the nation states by mobilizing the idea of a unified transnational community promotes a fresh, innovative understanding of what it is to be European today. Our task was to inspire a mutually accessible, translatable, and inspirational European culture. We are closing a challenging year. During 2020, simultaneously with the weakening of the public health, labor, and economic systems due to the pandemic, the European project that has once catalyzed the establishment of the European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture is also under threat. Anti-Gypsyism and anti-European sentiments grew immediately after the outbreak of the pandemic and continue to gain more ground, while many Roma communities are becoming isolated, discriminated, and humiliated, and will soon run out of financial and food reserves. Roma children and youth across Europe lag behind in education day by day, lacking the necessary digital connection and equipment to continue their education. In many European countries, culture and the arts are already marginalized. Many culture budgets are already cut. Roma arts and culture is even more severely hit than other European national cultures, and minority culture in many member states is not at all kept on the agenda. Roma will need to make a significant effort to keep Roma culture, arts, heritage, and language alive. Amidst the increasing scapegoating and racism, Roma culture is certainly the only positive public discourse about Roma people at the moment. Tonight's jazz concert is a curated selection of the best of contemporary Sinti jazz. It brings together the leading musicians, mixing contemporary and traditional sounds from diverse Roma and Sinti communities. The program of Diaspora Europe culminates today on the 10th of December, on International Human Rights Day, in the frame of Germany's Council of Europe presidency. We, the hosts, promote the diversity in Europe as a wonderful gift that makes Europe strong and resilient. To take up the fight against nationalisms, racisms, anti-Semitisms, and anti-Gypsyism means to give forms to positive, empowering, and genuine visions about our common belonging. This is indispensable for the nurturing of a next generation of not only Sinti and Roma, but Europeans who are aware of our interdependencies, mutual contributions, connected histories, and our inseparable futures.
Thank you so much, Tina Junghaus, Mitkuratorin dieses Festivals Diaspora Europa. Und ich sagte es schon, wir haben sehr viel zusammengesessen und überlegt, zusammen mit der Volksbühne, was wir in diesem Jahr alles präsentieren wollen, um die Communities, die Sinti-Roma-Community, die jüdische Community hier sprechen zu lassen, dass sich in diesem Jahr diese ganze Frage von, wie man sich selbst verortet in Europa als Minderheit noch einmal komplett neu stellt durch die Pandemie. Das haben wir natürlich nicht geahnt, aber wir glauben, dass ein solches Festival ganz wichtig ist und auch und gerade in diesen Zeiten, in denen auch Europa sich doch sehr nochmal fragen muss, was es eigentlich zusammenhält. Und marginalisierte Gruppen haben auf diesem Kontinent und auch in dem, was politisch die Europäische Union ist, ja eine Jahrhunderte, wenn nicht Jahrtausende lange alte Tradition. Sie zu hören und zu hören, wie sie sich in diesem Europa mit der Geschichte auseinandersetzen, wie sie auf Mehrheitsgesellschaften schauen, welche Identität sie haben und welches Tribut sie eigentlich auch geleistet haben, um Europa zu dem zu machen, was es ist. Das war die Idee dieses Festivals, was durch Corona natürlich auch nochmal eine ganz andere Dringlichkeit erfahren hat, denn wie Sie alle wissen, wir erleben ganz viele Bruchstellen, an denen totgeglaubte Gespenster, wie es Klaus Dörr ausgedrückt hat, wieder zutage treten. Ja, wir alle wissen, von was die Rede ist, aber umso wichtiger finden wir es, eben Bündnisse, Allianzen aufzuzeigen, Schnittmengen eben zu suchen und wünschen uns, dass es auch mehr davon demnächst geben wird. Der heutige Tag, der 10. Dezember, ist der Internationale Tag der Menschenrechte. Ich freue mich, dass wir hier heute Abend im Rahmen der Festivaleröffnung nicht nur den Deutsch-Französischen Preis für Menschenrechte verleihen werden, sondern auch den Staatsminister für Europa im Auswärtigen Amt, Michael Roth, begrüßen werden, sowie die Frau, die für die deutsche Bundesregierung die Frage der Menschenrechte zuständig ist, Dr. Bärbel Kofler, und für humanitäre Hilfe. Auch die französische Botschafterin Anne-Marie Descotes begrüße ich ganz herzlich an diesem Abend. Sie wird dann den Menschenrechtspreis übergeben. An wen? Das erfahren Sie ein wenig später. So, liebes virtuelles Publikum, begrüßen Sie jetzt mit mir Michael Roth, Staatsminister für Europa im Auswärtigen Amt. Herzlich willkommen, Michael Roth.
seems to be very complicated with this mask, but it's necessary to wear it. A warm welcome to this extraordinary gala event. I'm very pleased to take part in this opening ceremony for the Diaspora Europe Festival and excited about tonight's performance. This year, with an unprecedented global pandemic, has been hard on everyone, and particularly on those working in the cultural sector. I'm therefore very happy that ERIAC and the Volksbühne have found a way to let tonight's celebration of Jewish and Sinti and Roma culture take place. To everyone watching us on the live stream, I hope that you stay with us to celebrate music and culture. To be honest, watching a concert from your living room may not be the same as attending a gala event at the Volksbühne, but I hope that music can still help us to connect over a shared experience. This feeling of connection through art is part of what makes us human, even in current times of a pandemic. Tonight we celebrate human creativity and the important contribution of Jewish, Sinti, Roma artists to contemporary European culture. I would like to thank the European Roma Institute for Art and Culture for organizing this unique festival. ERIAC's mission is to strengthen the sense of pride and identity among Roma people and to fight against negative stereotypes through the means of art, culture, and history. Since it was established here in Berlin in 2017, ERIAC has been an excellent cooperation partner for us. One of Europe's greatest achievements is its cultural diversity. And far too long, the contribution of Roma arts and culture to our European heritage has been forgotten or even neglected. I'm convinced that ERIAC can help to raise international awareness for the Roma's cultural achievements. And there is more to celebrate. Today also marks International Human Rights Day. On the 10th of December, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly passed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The declaration was a milestone because it granted basic rights to every human being, regardless of skin color, sex, religion, nationality, or social background. On this year's International Human Rights Day, we also celebrate 70 years since the Council of Europe passed the European Convention on Human Rights. It's one of Europe's greatest achievements. After 2 world wars and the terrible crimes of the Holocaust, it showed that a better Europe was possible, one where human rights come first. But even as we celebrate this achievement, we must never take it for granted. We must remind ourselves that human rights must be continuously strengthened and defended, not only on today's Human Rights Day, but every day and everywhere in Europe. For 70 years, the Council of Europe has acted as the guardian of human rights, of democracy, and the rule of law in Europe. With its more than 200 conventions, its Commission Against Racism and Intolerance, and its Venice Commission, the Council of Europe has created a system of rights for Europe and beyond. Its high standards are unequaled. More than 800 million Europeans have the right to appeal to the European Court of Human Rights if they feel their fundamental rights have been infringed upon. On the 18th of November this year, Germany assumed the presidency of the Council of Europe's Committee of Ministers. We want to strengthen and to expand this system that guarantees the protection of fundamental rights. But we must not stop there. The quality of a functioning and well-fortified democracy can be measured by how it protects its weakest members and minorities. Diversity, ladies and gentlemen, and the protection of minorities are crucial parts of what Europe stands for today. We must therefore never tire of protecting those facing discrimination, like LGBTI persons, migrants and refugees, or the Roma as the largest ethnic minority in Europe. We have made minority rights one of our key priorities during our presidency at the Council of Europe. We are working closely with ERIAC and others to ensure that marginalized groups get to participate actively in political processes and that negative stereotypes are overcome, not least through the means of arts and culture. This is why I'm particularly excited to be able to speak here tonight at the Diaspora Europe Festival. Minority rights are a cross-cutting issue for our presidency. This means that we seek to incorporate minority rights and anti-discrimination in our other priorities as well. When we discussed the human rights dimension of artificial intelligence, for example, we have to make sure that algorithms don't reproduce human stereotypes. Human rights must also apply in the digital sphere. The internet is not beyond the law. As presidency, we therefore want to strengthen the Council of Europe's ongoing effort to combat online hate speech. Moreover, we are very concerned by the increase of violence against women and children during the pandemic. More people have been exposed to violence within their own homes. The Council of Europe's Istanbul Convention provides efficient means to combat gender-based and domestic violence if it is properly applied. As presidency, we want to encourage member states to ratify and to apply the Istanbul Convention. Europe today enjoys the highest level of protection of human rights worldwide. It doesn't need a major crisis like the current one to understand how valuable this is. We need solidarity in Europe, protecting and advancing human rights, particularly in times of the pandemic. When we as Europeans recover from the effects of the pandemic, we want to do it in a way that holds up to the high standards we have set for ourselves. I therefore want to repeat the slogan of this year's International Human Rights Day: recover better. Let's stand up for human rights together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michael Roth. Herzlichen Dank für diese Worte am 10. Dezember, dem Internationalen Tag der Menschenrechte. Liebes virtuelle Publikum, begrüßen Sie mit mir nun Snježana Samačić-Marković. Sie ist seit nunmehr 18 Jahren Generaldirektorin für Demokratie beim Europarat in Straßburg. Unter ihrer Verantwortung arbeitet die Generaldirektorin daran, die Mitgliedstaaten des Europarates bei der Schaffung eines günstigen Umfelds für nachhaltige Demokratie und demokratische Sicherheit in Europa zu unterstützen. Was heißt das genau? Das sind Themenfelder zum Beispiel wie Bildung und Jugend, lokale Demokratie, Kulturpolitik, Wahlunterstützung, Schutz der Menschenwürde, Gleichstellung der Geschlechter, Kinderrechte, Minderheitenrechte, Antidiskriminierung, demokratische Staatsbürgerschaft und demokratische Reaktion auf Krisensituationen, so wie Michael Roth es auch gerade ausgeführt hat. Und sie ist Mitglied des Vorstands des Europäischen Roma-Instituts für Kunst und Kultur, also von ERIAC. Snježana Samacic-Markovic hat uns eine Videobotschaft zukommen lassen für diesen Abend.
Dear Chairperson, dear Mr. Dörr, Director of the Volksbühne, dear Minister of State for Europe, Mr. Michael Roth, dear Ambassador Anne-Marie Decoté, French Ambassador to Germany, dear curators, Ms. Timea Junghaus and Mr. Shelley Kupperferberg, dear guests, dear friends, it is a great pleasure for me to open the Diaspora Europe Festival at the Volksbühne in Berlin today, on 10th December 2020. You could not have chosen a more appropriate date. And on the occasion of today's International Human Rights Day, I shall of course speak about human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. I shall speak about commitment, courage, and vision. Inspired and guided by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on the 10th of December 1948 in Paris, the Council of Europe elaborated the European Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, or in short, the European Convention on Human Rights, signed in Rome on 4th November 1940. This convention gave binding effect to the rights set out in the Universal Declaration. The European Court of Human Rights, judicial organ of the Council of Europe, supervises the fulfillment by member states of their undertakings. The court's judgments are binding. A state which is found to have committed human rights violation is required to provide redress for the damage to the victims and remedy the consequences of the violation, if possible. The state might also make sure that no similar violation occurs. Today, we celebrate 70th years of the adoption of the European Convention on Human Rights, and we see that it is needed more than ever. Growing nationalism, populism, and racism, often based on deeply rooted anti-Semitism, anti-Gypsyism, and Islamophobia, lead to increasing discrimination, hate speech, and hate crimes against minorities, including Roma, Sinti, and Jewish or Muslim communities and individuals. The European Commission Against Racism and Intolerance, so-called ECRI, has developed concrete recommendations to member states on combating anti-Gypsyism, anti-Semitism, and anti-Muslim hatred. The latter two are currently being updated to reflect recent societal changes. As ECRI has pointed out, this conduct does not only happen at the margins of society, it more and more finds its way into the center of society, and it is often propagated by some politicians or other public figures. These incidents do not only affect minorities, they pose a threat to the entire society and the democracy as a whole. Winston Churchill, whom we could call one of the conceptual founding fathers of the Council of Europe, once said that democracy is the worst form of government except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. End of quote. And he was so right. We must work to maintain and continuously improve democracy, just as much as we must fight to protect and promote human rights. We need commitment, courage, and vision. Commitment by the governments to adhere to human rights standards as enshrined in the European Convention on Human Rights, as well as to the principles of pluralist democracy and rule of law that are embedded in the Convention and in the Council of Europe's statute. We need courage. Courage by human rights defenders in case governments are slow or reluctant to heed their commitments or to put them into practice. I would like to congratulate the governments of France and Germany for having established the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and the Rule of Law, to award work of outstanding human rights promoters and defenders. Finally, we also need vision. For example, vision by Roma, Sinti and Jewish communities and individuals to present their own perspectives and narratives for living together in Europe, as they have been invited to do in the context of this Diaspora Europe Festival. A vision of a European culture nourished by active participation and engagement of all, for a true sense of belonging based on tolerance, non-discrimination, inclusion, and cherishing diversity as enrichment. I welcome that the Roma component of the festival has been curated by the European Roma Institute for Arts and Culture, ERIAC, in the framework of the German Presidency of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. And I would like to congratulate the whole ERIAC team on their achievements. You know, they thought it was possible, so they did it. I wish that the festival may become a great success.
Snježana Samacic-Markovic hat sich hier aus Straßburg gemeldet, die Generaldirektorin für Demokratie beim Europarat. Zeit für Musik, hier ist German Landsberger. German Landsberger, herzlichen Dank. Ja, wir kommen zur diesjährigen Verleihung des französisch-deutschen Menschenrechtspreises. Das haben wir bereits angekündigt. Anlässlich dieses Tages, also des Internationalen Tages der Menschenrechte am 10. Dezember, vergeben Deutschland und Frankreich seit 2016 jährlich gemeinsam diesen Preis für Menschenrechte und Rechtsstaatlichkeit an 15 Menschen, die sich in diesem Bereich engagiert haben, eingesetzt haben, teilweise auch ihr Leben riskieren. Heute Abend hier ist auch Dr. Bärbel Kofler, Beauftragte der deutschen Bundesregierung für Menschenrechtspolitik und humanitäre Hilfe. Frau Kofler, wir freuen uns sehr, dass Sie heute Abend hier sind. Sie haben das Wort.
Dear Minister of State Roth, dear Ambassador de Groot, ladies and gentlemen, today we celebrate International Day of Human Rights. Today is therefore the perfect day to award the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and the Rule of Law. We are honoring human rights defenders everywhere and want them to know you are not alone. Now in its 5th year, this prize recognizes extraordinary human rights defenders from around the world. Both our countries, France and Germany, share a commitment to uphold human rights. Our representatives globally work together on supporting those who risk their livelihoods, safety, sometimes even their lives, while fighting for basic freedoms and fighting for human rights. It is important to show them that their work is valued. This prize, unfortunately, can't be awarded to everyone who deserves it. But the 15 recipients of the 2020 award represent many people's willingness to stand up for human rights. This prize is being awarded to express our deep solidarity with their causes. Tonight, here in Berlin, we honor the outstanding achievements of Maria Patakiova. As ombudswoman in her country, she has tirelessly fought against the segregation of Roma children in schools. This year, in the first wave of the corona pandemic, she stood up for the non-discriminatory treatment of the Roma when their settlements were sealed with security forces. She has stood up for the human rights and freedoms of their compatriots, in particular with respect to unfair practices towards vulnerable groups of the society. Each of the 15 award winners is being honored at events in their respective countries. It is an incredibly and impressive diversity of individuals. They range from an Egyptian women's rights lawyer to a campaigner for indigenous rights in Brazil, from a comic book artist fighting for freedom of expression and freedom of press in Angola, to a Russian historian committed to the memory of the victims of the Stalin era, and a Pakistani activist engaged in a fight for the rights of transgender women and children. The broad scope of topics and countries illustrates the enormous human rights challenges the world faces today. The large number of suggestions we received this year shows on the one hand, or reflects on the one hand, the large number of dedicated human rights defenders. On the other hand, clearly shows that human rights and rule of law are under pressure and coming more and more under pressure. This development did not start with the coronavirus, but the current crisis has definitely made problems worse. Authoritarian governments around the world are using the pandemic to limit freedoms, and it is unlikely that they will restore those freedoms after the crisis. The challenges human rights defenders are facing today also show how essential their work is, how much their societies and the world needs them. That is why this public display of support is so important to me, to us. I hope that this award, as well as the other measures and programs we offer, can provide support and encouragement in difficult times. I want to say directly to human rights defenders, your work is not in vain. Your courage is seen, your dedication is inspiring. So I want to thank you and all of you who stand up for human rights and the rule of law. This award is for you.
Vielen Dank, Dr. Bergwell-Kofler. Ja, jetzt würde es natürlich eigentlich die Übergabe geben. Die werden wir heute virtuell hier zelebrieren und freuen uns sehr, dass heute Abend die französische Botschafterin in Deutschland bei uns ist, Madame Anne-Marie Descotes, die ich jetzt für diese Übergabe auf die Bühne bitte.
Good evening. Dear Minister of State Michael Roth, dear Mr. Dörr, thank you for your hospitality. It's really a pleasure to be here in a theater today. I just heard, unfortunately, before I came, that our government will not be able to reopen the theaters as we hoped next week, so because of the pandemic. So it's really a fantastic idea to organize this event here today. So, dear Mrs. Köfler, dear Mrs. Patakiova, ladies and gentlemen, the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and the Rule of Law is a comparatively young award, but its significance is particularly strong in these times, as human rights and the rule of law are threatened in many parts of the world. I would therefore like to thank Germany for its strong and continuous commitment to human rights. In this area, Franco-German convergence and cooperation are very significant. France fully supports the German presidency of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. I'm very happy to see that the program of the presidency, Michael Roth mentioned that in his speech, for the coming 6 months puts emphasis on the various aspects of human rights. Now more than ever, it is very important that we support the Council of Europe and the European Court of Human Rights. They are key pillars of our European democratic model, which guarantees freedom and liberties to our citizens across the continent. It is therefore an excellent signal that the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and the Rule of Law is being awarded during the German presidency. Since the creation of this Franco-German Prize in 2016, it has been awarded every year to human rights activists and journalists from all regions of the world. Courageous men and women who have fought for freedom of speech and media and who fight against torture, inhuman and humiliating treatment, forced displacement, violence against women or discrimination of all kinds. The promotion of gender equality is at the same time a major objective of this prize. So the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and Rule of Law honors people for their decisive role and active commitment in this area. France and Germany feel equally committed in this cause, support it together and pay tribute with this prize to all the men and women who contribute on a daily basis to the protection and promotion of human rights, often at the risk of their own lives and in sometimes extremely difficult conditions. This year, the prize will be attributed to 15 women and men, persons from all over the world, as it was said before. I'm very pleased that Professor Maria Patakiova, Commissioner for Civil Rights of the Slovak Republic, is being honored digitally with the prize today. And I would like to sincerely acknowledge her work. During the last years, Maria Patakiova has fearlessly fought for human rights and liberty of her fellow citizens. She has denounced legal infringements and violations of human rights of persons belonging to minorities in her country. Notably, in the context of the health crisis, she also has advocated in favor of unrestricted access to abortion. France particularly welcomes her commitment to respect for equality between women and men and the fight against all discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Today, the commitment of people like you, dear Ms. Patakiova, is more necessary than ever. France is particularly worried about the growing pressures, verbal and physical threats, and repression of all kinds that defenders of human rights are facing in many parts of the world. From January 2021, France will enter the Human Rights Council of the United Nations and as an elected member. The accession to this institution will be a unique opportunity for us to defend our common values and to support our feminist, progressive, and humanist approach. France will particularly stand up for three priorities: promotion of girls' and women's rights, including sexual and reproductive health and rights, protection of defenders of human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the right to inform and be informed. In 2021, France will also continue to stand up against sexist and sexual violence of every kind. In June 2021, France will welcome the Forum Generation Equality in Paris. It will be the biggest international meeting for women's rights and will lead to the establishment of 6 major coalitions of action, including one on the fight against violence. Dear Mrs. Patakiova, if you can hear us from Bratislava, congratulations again for your well-deserved prize. I give you my best wishes and full support for the continuation of your work, and of course also the same for the 14 other people who got this prize. I finally want to welcome again the German Presidency of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, where I know we will work more than closely and I hope successfully together to defend human rights. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations to Mrs. Patakiova.
Merci beaucoup. Vielen, vielen Dank, liebe Botschafterin. Ja, die Medaille für die Übergabe, die liegt hier, ist hier zu sehen und die wurde auch angenommen von Maria Patakiova. Glücklicherweise, auch sie hat uns eine Videobotschaft zukommen lassen. Hier ist sie.
Mesdames et Messieurs, Damen und Herren, Ladies and Gentlemen, let me express my most honest thanks for the awarding the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights, presenting a substantial commitment to continue in enforcing human rights in my country, in Slovakia. The Slovak Republic, situated in mid-European territory, is a member state of the European Union and the Council of Europe. Numerous human rights issues are relics of the problems not addressed and solved in the past, the most serious being the position of Roma ethnics in society, as reflected in the Strasbourg Court decision on the complaint of the victims of the police raid in Moldova nad Bodvou of 2013, where the victims of the event had become offenders. The level of managing the current issues of the COVID-19 pandemic is in many respects influenced by such unresolved problems from the past, being linked to the conventional behavior patterns of the majority population on freedom and equality for all in dignity and rights, as embedded in our Constitution. There are many other reasons due to which I take your award as fostering my obligation to go on in enforcing the principle of democracy and the rule of law in Slovakia. Thank you very much. Vielen Dank. Merci beaucoup.
Ja, soweit. Also Maria Patakiowa aus Bratislava hat sie sich gemeldet. Sie ist eine von den 15 ausgezeichneten Menschen, die in diesem Jahre den französisch-deutschen Menschenrechtspreis erhalten haben. Danke, liebe Botschafterin. Ja, und danke an alle, die in diesem Ausnahmejahr diesen Abend in dieser Form möglich gemacht haben. Das Festival Diaspora Europa ist also hiermit eröffnet. Unterschiedlichste Beiträge und künstlerische Interventionen, Performances, Talks, Musiken werden Sie ab heute auf der Homepage der Berliner Volksbühne finden. Den Abschluss des heutigen Abends macht nun eine virtuose, fantastische Sängerin der Berliner Jazzszene, auf die ich mich ganz besonders heute Abend freue. Das ist Ria Knight. Das komplette Konzert mit ihr, mit dem Rosenberg-Trio, mit Sandro Roy und German Landsberger Trio featuring Giovanni Weiss, dem Landsberger Quartet featuring Tayo, können Sie dann am 27. Januar 2021, also schon bald, auf der Internetseite der Volksbühne und von ERIAC finden. Schön, dass Sie heute Abend dabei waren, wenn auch nur in dieser virtuellen Form, aber Sie zeigen uns damit, dass diese Themen wichtig sind. Erzählen Sie es gerne weiter und ich hoffe dennoch hoffentlich auf bald und danke für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Und jetzt Ria Knight.
Talk it through. We've been out here so long, my fingers have turned blue. Haven't we gone over this before? Nothing seems new. If you love her, I won't stop you. If you love her, do what you gotta do. song was called If You Love Her, and it's from my upcoming EP, which will be released early next year. And this next track is called Lamental. Thank you very much. This song is called Hold You. It's our final track. It's the silence before the storm, and in the sky the clouds they form, and they're dark like the thoughts of you, and they're brooding, harboring the truth. keep you dry, tell you to stay the night, but to hold you now feels untrue. Are the same skies threatening you too? I'll never hold you close enough. I'll never hold you close enough. And if the sky is gray and the sea is rough, I'll pull you in and the ground will be soft. As I lie here again, clouds start to form. I surrender, I've seen all this before. Hands now held by someone new. Still my thoughts, they wander to you. Thank you very much. Thank you to Dora and Sigal also for accompanying me.
Danke, nur ganz kurz. Herzlichen Dank allen Beteiligten. Vor der Bühne, auf der Bühne, hinter der Bühne und insbesondere an unsere Ton-Video-Abteilung. Vielen Dank.